Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this Friday afternoon. I am Greg Swartz. I am the big man half of the Big Man We Dram. Here is the We Dram for this week. This week's We Dram will only be one dram, and it will be this, the Glasgow Original 1770, because it has a special place in my heart, because I got to make it for a little while, as some of you may know. I am not 100% sure what's actually happening right now. I got a text from Jack, my guest today, saying, sorry, small delay, about 20 minutes ago, and I've not heard from him since. But I wanted to go live because this is when I'm supposed to go live. So I'm live here, and I'm going to just chat with you guys for a couple of minutes. And if he doesn't show up, we'll have to reschedule for another time. I'm not sure what has happened. I hope everything's okay. Right after I'm finished today, I'm getting in the car and driving to Ventura, where we're doing a whiskey tasting as part of the Seaside Highland Games. And we're going to be at the Seaside Highland Games tomorrow with some really fun stuff, sharing some new Blu-rays of the movie, some other swag, glasses, T-shirts and stuff. And we're also going to be, like I said, tonight we're pouring some whiskeys as part of the whiskey tasting at the opening night dinner for the Highland Games. So it's pretty exciting. Where our whole team's going. It's been something we've been working on for a while. We have a lot of really great whiskey to pour, including some of the Take Two, which the only reason I'm actually not drinking a Take Two dram right now, that was my intent, is I packed up all of the Take Two drams that the bottles that we and I have. They're already packed in my car and ready to go. So I didn't even think to set one aside for this. So even the open one, because I have one that's about half full, but it's in the car. So yeah, I've not heard from Jack again here, so I'm only going to talk for a couple of minutes because I'm not all that interesting on my own. But I would love to have a conversation. So if anyone has any questions or comments or anything, or wants to talk about anything, one of the other things, though, that I did want to talk about today, I was absolutely going to bring up anyway, is the guests that we have, for the rest of this season that we're doing. Really, really excited. Frankly, I decided I was going to, really start booking these out ahead of time. And one of the things that's happened is really interesting is I've got so many guests booked that I've now actually spilled over into January. I haven't sorted the schedules on those out yet because we're going to take a break at the holidays. But just so you know, so next Friday, I'm going to be joined by Dram Moore's Kenny McDonald, who is a great guy, independent bottler from Scotland, larger than life character. Kenny and I met at a whiskey festival 4 years ago. Actually, right at the beginning of the pandemic, literally flying home from that was the sort of birth of that. So Kenny's going to be joining us next Friday to talk about Dram Moore Whiskeys, his independent bottlings, which are phenomenal whiskeys. Followed by that, I'm going to be joined on October 27th by Rab McAkern, who was actually one of my very first guests on this from Brooklady Distillery. But Rab and I are actually working on an idea for another a possible documentary series. And we're going to be ready to talk about it by then. Not really ready to talk too much about it by then, but it's about Scotland and it's not about whiskey, but whiskey plays a role in it. So Rab will be with me on October 27th. After that is our good friend Jenna Eli from Duncan Taylor, recently from Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, and for always Whiskey a Go Girl. She's featured throughout our film, has become a good friend of the film and of mine. And we're really excited to talk to her about her new role at Duncan Taylor. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but more and more, some of the guests that I've been having are independent bottlers. And that's because, as a lot of you may know, we're working on this film, a companion film to the original film about independent bottling and what a unique phenomenon it is. And what a great way it is to other drams that are, you wouldn't get otherwise. Brands, expressions, you just would not get, cask finishes, you just would not get. And one of the things that is so exciting for me is as we edit this, what we're discovering is just how many of the little innovations of whiskey over the years have always been done by independent bottlers first. Now, part of that is because they can experiment without ramification, or not without ramification, but without as much ramification, because they make a bad whiskey with a trial that they tried. It was a well-intentioned trial. They're going to waste a cask of whiskey, not 40,000 bottles of whiskey. So they're more nimble. But I will rattle off the rest of the guest list, but Jack has arrived now, so I'm going to let him in 1 second. But let me finish this quick. November 10th is Peyton Bell from Kentucky Peerless. And I'm really excited to talk about that because we're also getting ready to start working on our bourbon film. Then Theron Renier from The Obscure, which is a really curated cocktail distillery and it's really unique theatrical experience in downtown LA. My wife and I did it. It was really cool, very unique. And the whole creative team there is going to join us. Then Emma Crawford from Kilhoman, who recently became Kilhoman's global brand ambassador. And then for the last one of the year, David Brody from Bunnahabhain on December 8th. And if you have ever met David or had Warehouse 9 tasting, you won't forget it. Although you might forget some of the details because it's a belter. So now, without further ado, please, if you will welcome me and help me welcome Jack Beguedou. Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hey.
I'm making sure that this is also streamed on my channel right now. I didn't know that StreamYard allowed that people can stream on each other platform. So I'll make sure it'll be on YouTube as well.
So nice. Yeah. Ours is on YouTube. As we're live on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And we're now, I don't know if you saw this yet, but we're also now sharing our stream with the Whiskey Network magazine. So we're live on the Whiskey Network's website as well.
That is cool.
So it's really great to meet you.
I've heard a lot about you.
Well, and I was just going to say that. I feel like there's all these people in the whiskey industry, and you're one of them, where I hear the name and see stuff for years before our orbits cross.
It's interesting. A lot of folks were like, "Oh, have you met him? Have you met him?" And I'm like, "No, I've never met him." And they say, "You should probably meet him." So I'm meeting you.
Well, that's great. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, if there's any good things that came out of the pandemic, it was the idea that you could meet people like this as opposed to in person.
Absolutely. I think I did the record from 2020 all the way to 2021. I believe. I believe I did 67 interviews.
Wow.
That was so many interviews done. And I never thought a day in my life that I would talk. I would love talking to people so much on the internet. And it was one of those things where I created. It is weird, but the connection was the amount of connection you create immediately with people, even though you never met. And it was so good when we were let outside again to just meet these people and just embrace them and hug them. And it felt like you knew them forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm impressed not only with the number, I'm impressed that you actually counted.
I had to because at a certain point, I think I was doing 3 interviews a week. That's what I was doing. And I did that for almost 10 weeks. And then after that, I took a break. And then I went on. So when I look at my StreamYard and I look at my Instagram account, I was like, wow, that's a lot of
interviews. Yeah. You know what's funny is, so Jim McEwen told us, actually his wife told me this, that, before the pandemic, a random whiskey club in Taiwan or in Chicago or in Canada, they knew they weren't going to get Jim McEwen to appear at their whiskey tasting.
Right.
When it was Zoom, you could ask. So they were just swamped with requests, just swamped. And for a while, because he is who he is, he was trying to say yes to all of them. But I think it just got to the point where he just couldn't do it.
That's another man I have to. I want to interview. I want to. He's one of those people, almost like a unicorn.
Yeah.
But you see him in Zooms, and you're like, I just want to sit down and share a dram with this man. I'm sure there'll be a lot of stories I'm going to hear.
That's all there is. Yeah. When I was on Islay in June we did a tour of Scotland based on the film. And we're doing another one next year. But when I was there in June, I was trying to surprise the tour that Jim was going to show up and meet everyone. But Jim showed up early and everyone saw him before I did. And by the time I came out of we were at Bowmore, and by the time I came out of the warehouse, there was already like 8 people around it, and he was posing for photos and stuff.
Wow. Yeah. Islay still, I have not been to Islay.
Oh, really?
I feel like it's the best way to put it. I feel like it's my Achilles tendon, right? It's like I know everything about Islay. I talked to almost every brand ambassador that worked on Islay, Ardbeg, Buna, everybody. But I'm like, I feel like I don't want to do the just go for face.
Yeah,
4 days and back. I want to spend a week, even 10 days on Islay. I want to see it all. I want to talk to everyone. I don't want to rush it because of how much I love Islay whiskey.
Yeah. When we did our tour in June, we were there 10 days after the festival ended, which was actually great because everybody, like all the people who worked there, had rested a little bit and kind of were up to speed again. But a lot of the distilleries still had bottles of stuff around, like, rare stuffs, and it wasn't too crowded. I mean, it was fairly hot. Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't bad.
That's what I was surprised. I'm like, you set up this whole interview, and I never once heard you say, "What are we drinking?" You just said, "Let's talk," and I'm like, it's interesting that he never actually mentioned anything about spirits at all, and I'm like, that's interesting. I would love to have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, usually when I'm in LA, so usually it's only 1:00 here. So usually when I do this, I have a dram or two.
Yeah.
But what I was saying right before you joined me today, what I was saying is I'm literally going straight from here to Ventura for the Highland Games because we're showing the movie at the Highland Games and doing whiskey tasting. So I'm only going to have one dram here today because I've got to drive to Ventura.
And you don't have to have a dram. You're completely fine.
I already poured it.
Oh, shucks. Now you have to have it.
Yeah, I know it's going to go to waste otherwise.
I know. I know. You know what? I will follow you. Let me grab a glass, but since we were speaking of Isla, I have the batch 5 of Ardbeg Trebon.
Oh, nice.
The Ardbeg Trebon, batch 5. I just interviewed Cameron George, brand ambassador.
Yeah, I know Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron. We had a whole 2-hour live on Instagram and just had a conversation about the new release, all the 3 major release, the Bizarre Barbecue and all that. Trying to understand a little bit the mindset of Ardbeg as they're coming out with that.
Cameron's one of the people I've got sort of soft scheduled to be out to join me here in January. Because I'm running out of Fridays for the rest of this year, so I have to jump over.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So go ahead.
You go ahead.
Now I was about to say, when is the movie officially coming out?
It's out. I mean, it's as out as it's going to be. It's
okay.
So it premiered last summer on PBS, and that was basically our official premiere. Now it is available on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Canopy, Google Play, Microsoft Store. It's on. I believe it's on YouTube with commercials.
Yeah, but I saw part of it on YouTube.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, I wasn't sure what else was gonna come. I didn't know if there would be a big announcement of. But then I may just have to download it. I'm traveling next Monday. I may have to download it from Prime and just watch it while I'm on a plane.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, and we're trying to actually get it on planes right now. That's actually something we're working on today. It should be it should be on planes.
It should be. I mean, there's no way you're going on in Europe, UK, or Scotland, and it's not part of the things you should be.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we made an extended cut. We added 10. What happened was PBS made us get the movie under 90 minutes. So it was 97 minutes. So we had to get it down to 88. We did. And then what we did after that is we decided we liked the minutes, and we put them back in, and we have an extended cut that's on our website that people can see. Talk to me when we're done. I'll get you a link.
Okay.
But that's what we put in. There's now scenes that we added two big scenes back in, one about Glenfarclas and one about Springbank.
Okay. Which is another distillery I'm very curious about, Springbank.
And well, I've only been once. I really love Springbank, but it's funny. I like this kind of nerd stuff. One of the reasons that I think Springbank is so remote. They told us this. I didn't discover this. So this wasn't some genius idea of mine. This was something they told us. There's only one way to Campbelltown and one way out. It's one road.
I heard. I think it was the Glenmorangie, Dan, brand ambassador of Glenmorangie, was like, yeah, if you want to go to Springbank, it's like one way in, one way out.
And the tour companies don't want to do that because it bores people on tour buses. They want one way in and a different way out. So now they're building the second cow path. I think they're turning into a road. So now you can do a loop. So now you could go down on the west side of it and back up on the east side of it, or vice versa. But it's great whiskey, and it's just so hard to get to.
You know what you should work on with that movie. As this is just something that ding in my head is an explorer map because you cover so much.
Hmm.
It should be an explorer map based on your experience where someone can download it or map it out. So
Yeah, yeah,
when they get there, they just can go to their distillery and just as you watch the movie and you know about those distillery, what about a map to get you to those
yeah,
distilleries
yeah.
as you go in? That
And
that may
it'd
not
be
that may
interactive.
not be a bad idea.
Well, so when I first wanted to make a movie about whiskey, the original idea was to make it about whiskey overall, and then it was like, oh, this is just too big of a topic for an hour and a half. So we decided we'll start with Scotland and we'll go from there. So now we're working on an Irish whiskey and a bourbon, and the independent bottling film, which we're editing right now. And then we may continue from there. We've talked to some guys in Australia. We've talked to people in Japan. So it
Uh,
might we're going to run the world on the whiskey thing.
you know what? If you're doing the Japan one, you need a companion. I will volunteer. I know it'll be hard, so I would like to volunteer to help you out. Ireland will be fun because of the boom in Irish whiskey right now.
Yeah.
I truly, I'm telling you, 2 years ago I was there. Every Christmas, every New Year's, I discover a new place for New Year. So Ireland was the next thing for me. And tell you what, brother. Yes, I.
Uh-oh. I think we lost you. I think your mic came out. You just went silent. There was a big buzz and then you were gone. No.
It unmuted me.
There you go. There you're back.
But my fiance and I do New Year, new place. That's our agreement. So we will go to a place that we haven't discovered yet. And Ireland was 2 years ago, 2021, and we got engaged there actually. So we got engaged
nice.
on the Cliff of Moher, which is something I've always seen in movies. And I was like, well, if we have to have some special there, but I did not have enough time to get to everywhere I wanted to go because of so many distillery. I think March of this year, I even did 30 days of Irish whiskey, and 30 days was not enough to go through so many of those whiskeys. So
yeah,
Ireland definitely is the same way we saw a bourbon boom. We are seeing an Irish whiskey just boom happening right now. And
so I was there in October a year ago. I was there, and we couldn't we kept every day people would write to us and say, oh, go here. There's a new distillery here. And we just couldn't keep up. And
you cannot. Like I say, there's so much good things happening, amazing thing happening in Ireland. I just don't know if, I don't know how they're gonna, I'm sure there's gonna be with new, things. I'm sure there's gonna be new laws that may apply because people are doing a lot of experimentation with Irish whiskey right now. And I don't know where that's gonna land. So.
Have you crossed paths with Fionnán O'Connor? He's an Irish whiskey writer.
No,
because he lives in Dublin, but he's here right now in LA working on his doctoral thesis, and he's doing something really cool with his doctoral thesis. Is he discovered all these ancient Irish mash bills that aren't used anymore, and he's been giving them for free. They're collaborating on them to new startup distilleries to each make one. All over Ireland.
Hold on. I think what's his name? The guy from Keelowen.
Yeah, Brendan. Yeah, that's one of their partners. Yeah.
Correct. The guy from Keelowen, when I saw an interview from him, he mentioned him about because they do that wild fermentation in their distillery. So I was like, okay, that's where I heard the name before. So he mentioned them and said they're working on bringing back the old ways of Irish whiskey, and that I thought that was interesting because who does that? You have those, the same way. Obviously, Four Roses does their yeasts, and the two mash bills, 5 yeast. I think it will be nice to actually. No one actually reverse engineered it before, where we can go back to what Wild Turkey used to be, or what those old yeast
Yeah.
place. I think the only person I know that does it here is Alan Bishop. So Alan Bishop from the Spirit Lake will go back into the environment and see if he can collect the yeast of those
Yeah. Yeah.
old area in Indiana to see if he can create a new, that new whiskey that you still have that old flair.
The Pat Heist, the Wilderness
Yep.
Trail.
Yep.
Yeah. So he helped the guys at Limestone Branch. They had
Pat helped a lot of people.
Well, yeah, sure. But this is actually going to be part of our bourbon film because I thought this story was so cool.
Yeah.
Stephen Beam had a yeast can that was Jim Beam's.
Yep.
And they did a molecular analysis of it to find out what strain of yeast they were using. And then they kind of reconstituted that yeast. And, I like this sort of science nerd where whiskey meets science,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think what Dr. Pat is doing himself, I think is what is missing in the whiskey industry, right? A lot of people are not giving homage to what, I don't know, maybe because a lot of people don't get access to what now is called on the business Dusties, which is the older whiskeys. But I had a chance to have a whiskey that was made on my birthday. And you're like back 1984 and was put in a barrel in 1974, 10 years later, 1984. And you taste that whiskey and you're like, there's no way this is a whiskey under 100 proof. And it's just this delicious and it's amazing. And you go, wow, I wonder if somebody can reverse engineer this and give me the same thing, that I can have. That's just a 10-year-old whiskey. But I think what Dr. Pat is doing is just really helping the people that truly believe in making good whiskey, maintain that yeast. I would say that yeast integrity and maintain that juice integrity. Right. So that's
And it's funny you say that. We're working on this film, a companion film about independent bottling, and I'm co-directing it with my friend Guy Satchwell, who I see is actually in the chat here today.
Yeah,
we just did an interview with Gordon MacPhail. He did, and I'm paraphrasing this, but this is a total baller sentence to be able to honestly utter. They have a whiskey they just released that they found when they did some research about when it was distilled. It was distilled the day Elvis Presley had his first hit record.
Wow. Wow. These are, I tell you what, these are people that in my mind, I go, hats off to y'all, because I don't get, these are the people I like to say are like my whiskey heroes. Gordon MacPhail, what do you call it? There's like the owners of what do you call it? Signatory, those independent bottlers that are, I hold bottles that are, 30, 40-year-old bottles that I buy as this is my favorite little baby. I'm going to buy and put it here. And those releases are so amazing. I'm like, I just want to meet the guy that chose this cask and made sure it was aged this way and just put in this bottle, because for me, it's fantastic. Again, I'm a nerd, just like you. I nerd out when it comes to those. I just like, why is this cask? Why, when was this cask made, and which distillery was this stored in, and when did you buy it? When did you decide you're gonna put it in this thing? So, it's just me being me.
The thing I always think of with Gordon and MacPhail or any really old whiskeys, but they're so much built this way. They don't look here or here. They look only down the field. It's like in football, like hitting a receiver, like you're not throwing to where he is now, you're throwing to where he's going to be, and and they never, like the people, the Urquharts that are making the whiskeys now that are, barreling it, they're never even going to bottle those whiskeys. Like their grandchildren are going to bottle those whiskeys.
Wasn't Gordon MacPhail one of the first independent bottler houses?
I think they're the second oldest. I think Caden has older.
That's what I thought, because I read one of the first independent. Bottlers. I'm like,
well, it's funny. They told us a crazy story of that. So the Urquharts own it, but the name is Gordon and MacPhail. It was a grocery store. It was owned by Gordon and MacPhail. One of them, I can't remember which one, retired and sold his share to their manager, who was Urquhart. The next day, the other one was killed in the first car accident in Scotland ever. So the Urquharts went, their ancestor went from being an employee to being the sole owner in the course of a week.
Wow.
And they still own it to this day. It was like, that's well over 100 years. I think 128 years now they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the grocery store is still there.
That's a place I need to go to. I need to get to that grocery store.
Yeah. It's funny. Until when we were there filming, they were still selling cheese. They had a cheese counter and a deli counter, but I think that I've heard that they closed that now to make more room for whiskey. I can hear you fine, but your image froze.
Your image froze too. Yours is froze on my side too. Let me see here. Not sure what's going on.
I'm going to remove you and put you right back in.
It's fine. Completely fine.
Oh, but now you're back in, but it's just a black screen.
Let me see.
Now it's funny because now I've got some questions coming in.
Oh yeah, we have a few questions that
I know. Yeah. So no one's writing to me that I'm frozen yet. If I'm frozen too, but let me remove you and put you back in again and see if that helps. Hi everyone.
Hello people.
Nope. I can still hear you just fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just wrote to me. Greg is moving.
Greg is moving. Let me see.
While you're working on that, let me ask you this first question because I'm not the first, but it's the first one. With your knowledge and experience, what do you think is an emerging trend in whiskey that we should be watching for?
Emerging trend in whiskey. Let me see. I think I truly believe that independent bottlers are coming back, even in the bourbon industry. Stop paying attention to brands. Start educating yourself more on the spirit itself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. You're still frozen.
Right. Okay, all right.
But I can hear you just fine.
I just want to make sure. Yes, start educating yourself on the spirit. A lot of, I think at this point in time, Google is free, right? And most brands are very more transparent. So when a brand is not transparent, I would need you to just walk. You have the right to walk away from them. So start trusting people that are really putting their heart in the whiskey, which means those are the new brand that are really independent bottlers. I think that's what is happening now. I saw this guy with a shirt that says sourcing is not a crime. And I truly believe that. Right. And I truly believe that because sourcing is a new thing. No one has millions of dollars to build distilleries. I think what is happening between Europe now and America is that America used to be, we are having distilleries and we're going to have these distilleries. We're going to build all these distilleries and start our operation. Europe say we have 3 big distilleries and we're going to source and create independent bottlers. Now the opposite is happening. You're seeing more distillery built in Europe and less distillery built here because everybody is sourcing. So pay attention to those source whiskey. Some people have really delicious old barrels that they've been sitting on for a long time and waiting for the opportunity to put it out. So I think that's what you need to, don't just say it's new, so it must be bad, because people are sourcing really good whiskey now. So that will be my hot take on new trends.
Well, that's actually very encouraging because I know a lot of people are worried about independent bottlers because some of the big brands don't want to sell whiskey. They don't want to sell spirit anymore. So but that's what our whole film is about. They're all talking about look, this is cyclical. It comes back around.
Correct.
There's so many new distilleries that are aging spirit now that in a few years they're all going to have a ton of whiskey.
Correct. Correct.
A lake. It's interesting you said that about it in the States too, because people have asked me that a lot about independent bottling in the States, and I know there's people that are at work in setting that up. People that are really connected.
There's plenty of people doing this. There's so many people that are, I'm talking ready to go. They're either they're waiting for finances to be right or they're waiting for just something. But I'm telling you, people are ready to go, and they have those barrels. I know a friend of mine that started a new brand, and I think his youngest barrel is like 9 years old.
Wow.
And he bought that barrel when he was only 2 years old. So for 7 years, the man was sitting on his barrels. So
Do you know?
go ahead.
Have you heard of Finn Thompson? It's a newish independent bottler in Scotland.
No, I have not.
Well, we interviewed them for the film, and one of the interesting things about them is that they're most of these independent bottlers start from scratch. But his grandfather basically was a grocer and a bottler and a blender, and he had a whole warehouse of stock that he inherited from his grandfather. So like all of these first whiskeys they're releasing are all like 25, 30, 40, 45-year-old whiskeys, like right out just because he inherited it. So it's like talk about a nice head start.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for them. I mean, that's what it should be. Good for them. Good for them. I'm glad people are going through that. I'm glad we've seen more of that, because the static code needs to be challenged, and some people need to be rewarded, and I love to see that. And what I tell these brands is that there's one thing in the industry also that is happening, is the rise of blending. Right, a lot of people are blending whiskey, and I can tell you that 70% are failing at it. A lot of these whiskey coming out that are being blended, like these people are not truly blenders. They are trying to blend. Some are hiring, master blenders to come help them out. But to put it in good words, makeup on a pig is still a pig. Right.
Yeah. And so, people underestimate what a skill that is, and what the years it takes to master it.
Everybody thinks they can become a blender. So what is happening is you have people taking a very old whiskey, 15, 17, 18-year-old whiskey, and taking a young whiskey that's maybe 5 or 6 years old, and they're trying to create this uniformity with their stuff, and it doesn't work. It really does not work. So somewhere on the line, it's not creating something great. You are not Four Roses, right? Where you can take 7 different or 8 blend to create one whiskey, and it's a slam dunk. So I feel like that's what people. If there's something I stay away from, is that those blend that keep coming.
Yeah. One of the scenes that's in the extended cut of the film that we cut out was about Jim McEwen talking about learning to be a blender. And when he moved to Glasgow, one of his first jobs there was he would meet trucks full of spirit, and they all had to go into different blends, and he had to categorize them based on their quality and what type of spirit they were. And he said he would stand on the back of the truck and just pull one sample, move this over here, number 3, this over here, number 4, this over here, number 2. And he would do it all day long. So I always think of it's like running with ankle weights on, it's like, like just this kind of speed trial constantly, where you can't get in your own way. It's just your nose and the glass, and you cease to exist for a few minutes.
That's true, and I don't think a lot of people even give credit to the people that are doing it. You let's take something as simple as like a Lagavulin 16. People just like, I asked one of my friend one time, have you ever wondered how do they keep consistency? You've been drinking Lagavulin since I've known you in college, and we are now almost you almost in your 50s. So have you ever wondered how can they keep that same consistency over and over? And he was stumped. And I say, these people in Scotland have been doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah,
it took time. This is an art. So it's one of those that I feel like typical American way of us. We try to rush things sometimes.
Yeah,
and it doesn't always work. And I think that's where we are. That's what we need to see less of. Is those people rushing to blend whiskey. So I respect the people that are not blending. That's why I'm a big signatory fan. Because those vintage signatories that come out, straight from the cask, single cask, sometimes single estate. I'm like, sign me up. I'll buy those all day, because you are giving me the whiskey as authentically as you can give it to me. So I'll take it just like that. So that's where I am.
I think that I definitely think there's something happening with blends too, like not just blending single malts, but blended whiskeys. Like, now Adelphi released that, the
If you
McLean's Nose.
If you can excuse me just a second, if I can still just a second.
I'm gonna knock you out and bring you back in again and see if I can get you back. But one of the things that is, like Adelphi recently released McLean's Nose, which I know is in the States now, but I've not seen it here yet. I've seen it when I was in Scotland. It came out. But, I think that there's going to be this kind of mini trend of newish blends, premium blends that are going to open up that end of the market more, because I think that there's not a lot of competition for them. I think that there's just this sort of legacy blends that have existed since, before any of us was born. But I think the math is going to require that. Here's a way you can keep releasing new expressions without needing anywhere near the volume of malt that's just not going to be available and is too valuable to always put into blends. At this point, it's just worth more on its own. So it's funny. I knocked you out and I put you back in, and now you're black screen again. So I have no way of knowing if you're back or not. I'm going to try it again. So our friend James Julio says, high ABV blended whiskeys could be a thing. The nose was $29 local. Wow, that's $29 for that. That's got to be at least. I don't know what percentage it is, but I bet you that's at least 1/3 Ardent American single malt in there. And someone said, no one told me there would be math. We don't have to do the math. We benefit from the math. Basically, if these days, if you're a distillery and you have a brand of your own single malt, you have a opportunity to sell it as a single malt at a much higher price than you would if you put it into a blend. But traditionally, there'd be very, very little malt in the blend. So most of it's going to be grain whiskey that's going to be a lot less expensive. And now if there's a way for people to start making a viable business out of having blends with a lot of malt, with a high malt content, they're going to taste better. They're going to have a lot more nuance to them. They're going to cost more, but not much more. And then it's going to really, really require the handiwork of a master blender, because you've got to get that right without compromising the quality of it. So I definitely think that's the way that the market's going to have to head, because there's just not enough blend out there. One of the other questions I'm going to answer, we're still trying to work on getting Jack back in here, is one of the other questions that we got was, well, Guy, actually, like I said, who was the co-director of the thing, said that there's more freedom of movement. Guy, there is and there isn't. There is the Irish Whiskey Association, and the Irish Whiskey Association has probably a few rules, but one of them is quite onerous, which is they actually prescribe what can be considered Irish pot still whiskey. And a lot of the younger, newer distillers would tell you the rule's actually completely wrong. It's not just limiting, it's wrong. That what 100 years ago would have been considered pot still whiskey in Ireland is not pot still whiskey legally now. And I'm not saying this is necessarily my opinion. What I'm saying is, hello, good, we got it back.
I literally had to quit the whole thing.
Nice.
And get out of Google and come back in.
Well, that's okay. I've been rambling about Irish whiskey, the Irish Whiskey Association. I was about to say something controversial, but all I'm doing is quoting someone else. So Mark Renier, who is, not afraid at all to say controversial things, said, someone asked him if you've often criticized this SWA as being you often criticize the SWA as being a circus. How do you feel about the Irish Whiskey Association now you're making whiskey in Ireland? And he said, well, right. if the SWA is a circus, the Irish Whiskey Association is the clown car.
Oh, man. You know what?
And but the distillery you mentioned, Killowen, like those guys are fighting to change what is considered pot still whiskey, like because they said the law has become so limited as to what can be called pot still that they can't call it pot still whiskey, and it is. It's just
and I feel sometimes like we truly. That I feel like the politics behind some of these things, it's the problem. That's the real problem. It's the politics, and it's not. I don't think if there was, I don't know who are on those board and did decision making, but I think if there was more distillers on those, on those board, things will go a little easier. But when you take some of the suits and put them in those positions, the decision is not necessarily made from experience. It's made more from, this doesn't make sense to me. So I guess we can change. We don't need to change the law this way, right? If you do it every day, you know what it takes to do it. So that's why I feel sometimes as like here, not to get political, but when I hear something in the Senate and they make decisions that have nothing to do with the person talking about it, I have no idea. Can I relate to it? I'm like, okay, so you're going to make a law, but you have no idea how to relate to this law. Good for you. So that's how I feel sometimes. Like I feel in every industry is the same thing. It's going to happen. It's always the people that have no relations to what is happening in the industry got there either by some certain merit. There's no condition of you maybe have done the trade first before you can qualify to be on a board. That's what I feel like happens.
Well, it's funny because every industry has a trade organization, but only a few of them where the public pays attention to them. No one knows anything about railroad law, but everyone knows everything. Well, I mean, all the whiskey anoraks know all about whiskey law, and they're all.
I know people that can cite you the TTB rules in and out.
Yeah,
right. because they check on it. I remember this guy criticizing me because he saw me post something that said bourbon, to be called bourbon, it has to get in an oak barrel, right? I say it said the little thing say oak barrel and no less than 125, and he literally said, it's not oak barrel, it's oak container.
Well, one of those that's true in Scotland is everyone always says 3 years and a day. The law doesn't say end a day. People
Correct.
added that. They always say it's about leap year, and you have to have the day to make sure. But the law actually just says 3 years.
I'm sitting there going, dude, don't get technical on me. Is it good bourbon or not? Stop being technical on me. It's like quote unquote. It has to be container. Like, get out of here. No, we don't want to hear that. So those are things I think sometimes that, again, people and opinions and just the people in place to actually make those decisions, I don't think are day-to-day or 100% day-to-day people that are doing the work. So obviously they're not, you're not helping.
Yeah. And what's funny is the one way that in Ireland they're definitely freer than Scotland is it doesn't say oak in Ireland, it says wood.
Yes.
And so there's like I've had a feeling out of a chestnut cask.
Yeah, beginning of this year, I'm like, did he say just wood? And the person's like, yeah, because they're using they're not using oak. They're using a friend of mine. I don't know if you know W.D. O'Connell. He's an independent bottler too in Ireland, and they're using like what is it like apple tree and some weird tree that they're using to age their whiskey. And I'm like, what are you doing? How is that going to taste?
Well, I had a Teeling out of a chestnut cask, and it was good. But they said that the reason no one uses chestnut casks is because it's actually not very watertight or liquid tight.
Correct.
It leaks like crazy, so they have to cover the outside of it with like tar, and you have to wear gloves whenever you handle the cask.
What the hell?
So it's when I one of the whiskey podcaster Carrie Moynihan, who I know is watching us here. I saw her comment earlier. Carrie went. She's the one who I went to Ireland with, and we were at Waterford. They had a little mini warehouse of like five barrels. None of them was oak. They were all different, and I think one was cherry, one was acacia.
Yeah.
I don't remember what all of them were. I just remember,
I love Waterford. I love Waterford. I love the town, but I really love the distillery.
The Death Star.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that place is huge.
Mm-hmm.
This is huge.
It's so funny because most distilleries are like don't have enough room. Like they all are like, and Waterford's got like like a football stadium.
Have you been to the basement?
Yeah. We filmed in there. Yeah.
That's like my favorite pictures that I have is in that basement. Just looking at the older cask, those 15-gallon casks that they have there in that basement. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
I when I was there filming, they went on a tour and I was getting set up and I thought I was locked in there for like 3 hours, but it turns out there was actually a way to open the door. I just didn't know how to do it. But I was like, look, if I am locked in here, at least I've got whiskey.
I thought you got whiskey.
Yeah. We have a question. If tar is on it, if Jake, it wasn't tar. I don't remember what it was. It was basically it was black goo, but it wasn't tar. And it might have been like Paxaret, but I don't think they're allowed to use Paxaret. But it wasn't in the whiskey; it was on the outside, so I don't honestly remember. But they just said that they had to constantly treat it to keep the wood. They wanted the wood to swell because it would contract on its own. So they were basically forcing the wood to swell to stay tight. But it wasn't while I was at Teeling. It was actually a tasting we did here in LA where they had brought it here when I had it. So I honestly don't remember.
He said problem wax.
Yeah.
Probably wax. Yeah. But it's one of those. I'm sometimes just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah,
people been doing it for each generation for years. What's wrong with wine cask and what's wrong with the regular cask we already have? Is working. Don't break it.
It's funny. You see, sometimes you'll see those casks around the head. They'll be like palm fronds.
Yeah.
And some of them there's extra palm fronds around. And I actually asked Jim McEwen what that was all about, and he said, that, to be honest with you, he said that is actually more of an honorary throwback to ancient casks when they would have used that to seal it. Now it's more like he said, some wineries in France will use it as more of a decorative thing to sort of show how old casks are. I know they hammer them in
different.
Well, I'm not talking about the ones that they hammer in. I've seen them hammer those in and stuff like the palm fronds, but I'm saying these were definitely decorative. These almost looked like a fringe, like a hula skirt or something around the top.
Oh, around the top. Outside. Okay. Yeah. Because I heard that especially for port cask, they add those extra on top for the bugs to eat. Like termite, when they come to eat, like they had a lot of bugs that eat wood. So that extra one, they actually put a wood that is attractive to them on top and nail it so they don't get to the real, because port can sip into the wood, attracting insects. So they put that on top, that extra rim, to be able to actually bring them. It kind of they lodge them into those extra rubber rim, so it protects the real wood, so they don't get to it.
See, I love stuff like that. I love that. That's sort of like ancient wisdom that we've completely lost.
Yeah. So because I just came back from Angel's Envy, and it was just weird that since they do a lot of port cast finish, I was like, what? Why is there all these extra thing on top of these barrels? And they're like, oh yeah, when they come from Portugal, they come that way because the port sip out, so they need to make sure that this insect can stay on top and not get into the wood. I'm like,
yeah,
I learned something new.
Yeah, no, every day. That's one of the things I dig about whiskey is I'm never going to stop finding out new stuff about whiskey every single day.
What I need to do is to be on the road with you. I'm sure by the time I'm done, I'll become a genius. There's so many places you've been. For me, it's always.
I've just been all over Scotland. You know, I mean, we've taken the film all over the place. We did two tours of Canada now. We've been to Australia, Germany a couple times. As we speak, the movie is showing in Poland, in Warsaw, Poland tonight, with its newly applied Polish subtitles. As of yesterday, we have Polish subtitles.
Nice. Congratulations, man. I love what you've done with this. Tell you what, yeah. Now you got to include Thailand. You got to go to Kavalan.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, we did a bunch of events in Taiwan that we weren't able to go to because it was in the heart of the pandemic. So we just did them via Zoom, but there were people there who saw the films. But I'd love to go to Kavalan.
Taiwan, Kavalan. Kavalan is my all-time favorite whiskey. I want people to talk about all-time favorite whiskey. If I had a chance to go to Taiwan to see Kavalan or head to Isla, I'd probably go to Taiwan first because it's just how the softness in his whiskey, the depth of flavor created in those single cask or those cask strength whiskeys are just, for me, very interesting. So I really want to know. I want to know how is those barrels stores and how is he choosing those barrels to create those type of flavors in those whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed. I can admit that I bought too many Kavalan.
I only have one bottle of Kavalan right now.
No.
The Solist.
Which one? Which Solist?
2019.
But which one?
It's the green one.
The green one will be the bourbon one. So
yeah, for sure. It's the next.
Yeah, each one is there. The blue one is the pheno. Right?
Okay.
So each one is different. So depending on the color, you actually are getting a different.
So then, yes, it's the green one. It's but I got it in 2019, and I really like it a lot. I it's probably still 2/3 full too because I have too much whiskey, and
that's true. I'm jealous of you because you got K&L there.
I was at K&L this morning. Actually.
Yeah. See, K&L K&L gets all the Kavalan, and I think they have like exclusive right to some of their single cask that they get. So when it comes to US, only in California. So sometimes I have to start making calls and start texting people. Go, hey, I think K&L got this Kavalan. Can you go see if they have it?
So are you in Chicago?
No, actually, I'm in Nebraska. I'm always in Chicago.
Oh, okay. I've seen you. I've just seen you posting.
45-minute flight. Yeah, 45-minute flight to Chicago. But I'm always on the road. Nebraska is home because my daughter's here. I'm a dad. So, I'm always almost always on the road, and in the name of whiskey.
It's I just learned this. Talk about nerd stuff to learn. Holly Sidewan just told me this a couple weeks ago when she was on here. A lot of independent bottlers get stuck in California because some of the bigger importers or independent bottlers are in California, and they're such little batches, like single cask, they'll never even make it outside the state, which I'm fine with. I would be less fine with if I lived in Connecticut.
Of course you would. But what I'm telling you here is that's probably my problem, because I always say California is the only place they all stop. Best case scenario, maybe you see it in DC. And if you were blessed enough, you'll show up in Chicago at Benny's, because Benny's also been, as big as they are. But there's so many good, like when I'm talking spirits in general, so many amazing cognacs, so many single cask cognac, single estate. There's so many single malt, that are so much independent bottlers that make amazing whiskey. But the only time I can try is if I'm on a plane and I stop in France or somewhere, and I'm like, oh, I can have that. But they all stock. You're right. All stock in California. K&L, I browse K&L at least once a week just to see if I can. And they still have this. Somebody need to invest in their website. Somebody need to they need to update their website for all the money they make at K&L. They need a better website.
I don't know about you, but the website won't leave me logged in. Every time I go there, I have to log in again.
Yeah, sure, yeah, you lowly have, which I understand is security, but definitely they can do a better job at the website on helping people find new spirit. Yeah, but you guys are lucky because my all my old Alexander Marie, all my old signatory, all my old Rare Perfection, all these, they are all is a friend in California, and she's actually on YouTube too. Whiskey Fancies. She's the one who usually on her way home, she lives in the Hollywood area, would stop by the KNL Hollywood to say, hey, there's this, and that. Do you want one? Without her, I probably live in Nebraska. I would never get a chance to get some of these bottles.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Pennsylvania originally, and Pennsylvania's a nightmare as far as liquor laws are concerned. So the selection's atrocious. Every time I go back to East, I bring friends stuff.
Texas is another one. They get a bunch of single malts as well. So, but they're the big, Texas and California are the bigger states. So I mean, there's nothing. The rules are the rules. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's been awesome talking to you. I'm sorry we had some technical issues there, but it doesn't matter to me at all.
I'm used to technical difficulties. When you're doing any of these live, like currently, I updated my computer, and now my official camera that give me a better thing, my Nikon, doesn't work with the Nikon web utility stopped working after I updated to the new iOS on my Mac, and I'm like, something always goes wrong when I do an update. So,
well, I have a Canon camera that I used as my webcam forever because Canon has a great web utility.
Yeah.
And then they started charging a monthly fee to use it. So I was like, forget it. So this is actually my Mac's webcam because I got a new Mac that has a good camera now. Finally.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God. I'm like, why are you guys doing this? You need to let the people work. Stop. Yeah. But
so we're getting ready to start work on a bourbon film, and I'd love to talk to you later. Just to chat with you about that, and you talk about the state of bourbon, because my passion begins with Scotch, but it doesn't end there. And and so we haven't started filming on any of the other ones on bourbon or Irish whiskey yet. We actually have already shot a film about beer, about Bavarian beer in Germany, and that's in post. So. But we're going to get around to doing this in the next few months with the idea of shooting next summer. So
good. Whatever you need, whatever you need, let me know. I'm as nerdy as you think, and I've interviewed enough brands and talked to enough people and if you need any introduction, obviously, I would love to introduce you, at least in the bourbon game, a few people that I'm sure will be more than happy to talk to you.
Well, thanks, man.
I tell you a little bit about what they do. Yeah, I would love to be part and answer any question you may need.
Cool. Yeah.
You're doing amazing. Water of Life is a success. If you guys here haven't seen it yet, I've seen the first 15 minutes. That's what I watched it on, just a snippet of it. But I think I'm gonna download it. It's on Prime. So if you have Prime, go on Prime and get it.
I just put a link in the chat that will take people to where they can get it. It's our website, but it'll take them to all the options. So
I'm saving it right now, so I can maybe can you display it? Can you put it in the comment?
Yeah, I can, sure. Well, here, this is the main one. This is our website, but from there you'll see it's right there. There you go. Yeah. So it's in the chat. That should be a live link and on the screen there as well. People can see it.
Yeah.
And So thanks, man. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for all you do and for whiskey. I've been a fan of yours for a long time.
I'm glad we finally got to talk. Me too. I'm always excited to see your Instagram. So
acting goofy on Instagram yet.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for spending part of your Friday with us. It's been an hour. It flew by. And we'll see you next Friday. Kenny McDonald is going to join us from Independent Bottler Dram More. Until then, cheers.